Hi everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of Comics from the Multiverse, the new DC Comics podcast from the Multiverse Podcast Network. I'm Peter Bradley, and joining me for this journey through the multiverse is Matt Sculthorpe.
That's right. I'll be the Booster Gold on here. I'm mainly here for comedic support, but sometimes I make sense. So
You would think with the Twitter handle, you'd be more of the Superman here, but
Superman has way too much responsibility. Let's be honest. So if anyone's Superman here, it's Pete because he does all the work.
No, thank you.
Don't give him credit, damn it.
Well, he does. I'm not going to be staying up till midnight editing this stuff. Pete does that.
And that other voice you hear is coming from the chronic hiccuping Ginger Menace, who finally has someone to look up to again. We'll get to that later.
It's not Mira. Right?
I am the obligatory ginger, because, I mean, if we're talking all this stuff, there's got to be one.
Yeah, that's Connor Ryan, who's here, folks.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting for a holo, but it's fine. We can.
I thought we'd covered this already. And, you know, I'd spoken, then you said...
We're off to a great start.
This is a fantastic start. Yeah, you can expect more of this shambles as we go through this.
Well, it's gonna be like this. We're going basically from the New 52 to a Rebirth, so we got to start being kind of shitty and make our way to being great.
Yeah,
Bit of convoluted stuff in the middle.
right.
Yeah.
Right now, things are a bit grim. There's not a lot of hope, but we're going to fight to get it back.
That's right.
There will be hope. Okay, right, so DC Comics, this is why we're here. We're all fans of DC Comics. Grew up Batman and Superman, expanded from there, I'm sure. But why are we starting this now? We're starting this now because DC Rebirth just kicked off.
It was on silent, I swear. It's turned itself off.
I am going to murder you.
I fucking turned that on silent before the last thing.
Hey guys, look, this is
itself
wonderful.
off.
You're going straight
Geo-
back into the Speed
Geo
Force.
messaging the Ginger so he could sabotage this, so he could say the New 52 is the plan all along. But he's a liar, and let's not let the Ginger sabotage us. But
It's my phone has a mind of its own. It's
Aye, sure.
Brainiac
Sure.
9, I gotcha.
Who made it,
So-
Dan Didio?
Yeah.
Right, anyway. So, DC Comics, right? Rebirth started this week. It's the new sort of... It's not an event, it's a new era. It's a new...
Initiative.
Initiative, yeah. So we had the 80-page DC Rebirth special, which of course we're going to talk about today. And every week we're going to talk about the DC Comics we're reading. Certainly over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it's going to be. We're going to try all the Rebirth books, all the Rebirth issue ones we are going to read. We're not going to commit to doing all of them every time they come out, because there's going to be certain things, like for example, if something's written by Scott Lobdell, I'm almost guaranteeing you that we will not be doing issue 2. Right?
No.
I'm guaranteeing.
Thankfully,
It's
that's only
not
one book.
DC. Yeah, it's not DC related, but people were burning Captain America this week. If you guys make me buy a Lobdell book more than once, I'm having a bonfire right here. So, also, I try not to read too much Robert Venditti. Nothing against the guy, but I just can't.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's some books we're kind of expecting, wanting to go one way or the other. But I think we're all pretty confident there'll be a good 15 to 20 books out of the current Rebirth list that we're all going to end up reading. So, that's the plan. Now, if you want to hear what we were expecting from some of these from before, we did actually have like an episode 0, as it were, back in March when they had the big WonderCon stream and they announced all the creative teams. We recorded some. We didn't even have a name for the podcast yet, but we recorded a video and an audio episode. You can find it in the same feed, and I've listed it as Comics from the Multiverse episode 0, even though we didn't have a title at the time. But in retrospect, it's episode 0.
That was the plan all along.
It was the plan all along. It was episode 0, and it always was. So,
That's right.
let's get into it. Now, of course, as we go through these books, we are going to have to talk spoilers. I don't think there's any way
Massive.
to discuss the books without doing that. And I think for Rebirth specifically, there's huge mammoth spoilers. Now, admittedly, it's been over a week now since those spoilers went online, so the chances that you don't know are pretty slim. But I want to just give you the general spoiler warning for everything going forward. Now that's not to say we'll try and not spoil other books while we're talking about one specific book too much.
Yeah.
Just in case, like, maybe you've not read one book, you want to skip that review and you fast forward to, the next one. We'll try and keep them light in general. But, there'll be some big universe stuff that's going to, like, change the status quo of everything that's going to have to get talked about from time to time.
Especially with all this Rebirth stuff.
Especially with this Rebirth stuff. So,
well,
that's where we're coming from in terms of spoilers. So we are going to talk spoilers for the books. So I guess that's as much of an introduction that I think we need. And I think it's time to get into Rebirth issue 0, which I think we were all really, really excited about on the lead up to it.
Yeah, it's
definitely.
That's putting it mildly.
I felt like a kid on Christmas Eve, on Tuesday last week.
Oh yeah, this week, I woke up on Wednesday morning. Usually I set a couple alarms to wake up because I don't like to wake up. But my first one went off and it said Rebirth Day, and I hopped out of bed, downloaded it first thing so I could read it over breakfast. And
I left before work an hour early just to go to the shop to get this because I didn't want to wait till 5 o'clock to read it. I wanted to read it before work. That's how excited I was.
And this is the most excited I've been for DC in a good long while.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was up late on Tuesday night, and it got to the point where I might as well just stay up until they go online.
Because you never do that, do you?
He is a vampire. He thrives on moonlight.
Well, when I record stuff with people like you on the West Coast, I kind of have to be a bit of a night owl.
See what you did there.
See what I did. Okay. So, we were all pumped, and for a lot of reasons, which I'm sure we'll discuss, is the very meta commentary comes out in this book. So, without any further ado, let's get into DC Universe Rebirth, issue 1. One shot, Geoff Johns, mix of artists. We've got Gary Frank, Ethan Van Sciver, and one other one. There you go. That's another regular, actually. He's worked with all these guys before.
Yeah, so these are all guys that work really well with Geoff Johns. They're all... Anytime he's had a major story to tell, he's gone to one of those three.
Yeah.
So that was a nice fitting, way to start.
And it's funny, actually, because obviously the first page or so, it starts with the watch, and we hear the narrator, and we don't know who it is yet. Well, I mean, we did, but theoretically, you wouldn't know who's narrating yet.
Yeah.
And that ties obviously into what we get to at the end, but there's a lot of really nice meta commentary here at the start, which I really like. And people have talked about this already. I've heard people talk about this online about how Geoff Johns is basically writing about the DC Universe himself. He's almost speaking in the first person as himself, rather than this character. I look down. I'm directly quoting from the book here. I look down at it and I know without question I love this world, but there's something missing. And I think what works so well, apart from who this character is, which we're going to get to in about a minute, is I think that's the way a lot of DC fans feel and have felt for the last few years.
4 years?
Yeah, so I don't think it's just Johns saying, being this character. I think he's saying this is the fans, essentially.
Yeah.
That's everyone.
Well, he is a fan. That's,
of course,
he's fan number one.
Specific to just him. This is encompassing every fan. It's all their voices.
But at the same time, the reason why I say specifically him is because I think a lot of this meta commentary and a lot of this book feels very personal. It feels like a very personal written book. A lot of this narration is very much that. So obviously, before we start talking about plot details, let's talk about Wally West, because the Ginger is back.
Yes.
And this was part of the excitement, of course, because if you've been reading Titans Hunt, which is the lead into Titans, there was a big hint at the end where they're all like, wait a minute, there was another one of us back in the day. Who was that? That's weird. Yeah. There's someone missing.
And then lightning strikes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the other big...
And also...
I was going to say, even before that, when they announced the solicits for the first month of books...
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, the two books that had a warning were The Flash and Titans, and they both said, don't read this before reading Rebirth issue 1. And it was like, well, what do those two books possibly have in common?
Yeah.
So
there's only And it also should be noted that Geoff Johns really came to comics with Wally West. That was his first major series that he made his name on. And Wally was, his Flash. For as much as he worked with Barry, with Rebirth, with Flash Rebirth, and used him later throughout, the comics, it was pretty much the Wally show. So he's getting to revisit this character that he made his name with, and gets to tell his reintroduction to this world that he's been missing from since the New 52. And that was the one thing that people would ask DiDio, and he would just clam up on. And he didn't want to address why Wally wasn't there. And it wasn't that there was a new Wally, because it took 3 years into the New 52 for them to reintroduce Wally.
Yeah, the new Wally almost felt like more of a reaction to the TV show than it did.
Yeah.
It was about that sort of time. It was when the TV show was in production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When that came about, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
it's Wally was one of the. Wally was very much the poster child for everything we lost when the New 52 started. It wasn't the only thing.
Exactly.
I mean, Superman lost his parents, he lost his marriage, and I mean, we've kind of got some of that back now. But Wally was this representation. He was the big example of everything that went away. This idea of legacy, which they're now returning to and saying legacy is important.
That's what it is too, because we lost that legacy. The whole stance of the New 52 was these guys have only been operating 5 years. And with Batman, some stuff stayed. So you saw all the Robins in 5 years. And that didn't make sense. And, it wasn't put up that Dick Grayson was Robin for that long. And so there's this legacy. The JSA was transported to a completely different Earth. And Wally represents that legacy. He was the first hero to take on the mantle of his mentor at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So he's very fitting to reintroduce the concept of legacy to the DCU.
Yeah, and he's also one of the more optimistic characters and one of the more happy characters who makes a point of smiling, who makes a point of... I mean, Barry's a lot like this as well, in the sense that they're the superhero, the Flash is the superhero that will stop and ask you how your day is after he saves you.
Mm-hmm.
Debatably, because he's got time, because he can get anywhere else in super speed. But
and that's...
But he still makes the effort.
Exactly, and that's what makes him different than other heroes, right? Is like he believes in this justice, but he also believes in, why not do it with a smile?
Yeah, do you know what it almost is? Because obviously Superman's a very smiley hero who cares about people, but Flash is almost like the more down-to-earth version, which is kind of silly given how powerful he can be with his speed, but the way he feels like the everyman's hero in the street, in a way that Superman just can't, because he is this larger-than-life, he's going to catch the plane in the sky,
But like Flash going to stop someone stealing your purse.
Yep. Or that right there. But and it's always made sense to gravitate towards that with the Flash, is these very street level. While you can still do the time travel and all that stuff, the cosmic treadmill, it's still his villains have always been very street level. With Captain Cold, he's just a thug that uses a cold gun to commit crimes.
All of the rogues, really.
Yeah. So and it fits to bring this back around with him. But the first thing we get after, is that it said that the watch that he's talking about was given to him by his uncle.
Yeah,
and
from Barry.
First signifier of who this is that's talking.
Absolutely. I'm kind of leaving the watch thing almost because it ties more into the ending, like thematically. Yeah. But absolutely. So the first place that Wally goes is this book is mainly him like bouncing around the DCU and addressing different things, and he goes to Bruce Wayne, he goes to the Batcave to see Batman, and I think we almost have to pause talking about the main plot of Rebirth to address what Batman's doing in this scene, because when there was 4 big spoilers last week, one of them, and it was the one that scratched. Well, debatably the big one at the end is the one that scratched the most heads, but this is the one that everyone went, wait, what?
The one at the end was like, you can understand it. This kind of feels like this is the one that could easily go wrong if it's not treated well. Like, it could feel more gimmicky than the others.
And of course, we're talking about the idea that there's 3 Jokers. You know, it's not just one.
Yep.
And I will say 2 things about this that are fairly positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so far, at least in this book, it's been handled okay because it's still been treated like a mystery. I like that. And 2, in hindsight, it actually works better because see when Batman and Justice League sat in the chair and what's the Joker's real name, and he reacts like, oh my god, right? I actually kind of love in hindsight that he said, what's the Joker's real name, and the chair just went, which one? Like, I'm like, that's actually kind of amazing, like, because that keeps the mystery. We still don't know.
I did have a little bit of a problem with this, though. I mean,
on you go.
So is this great detective, and it implies that the Jokers are concurrent. They're not like one after the other, because he says, "Oh, we just caught the Joker yesterday, but now he's doing something else, and they've got the other one in custody." And it's like, so it took until he knew this for them to both commit a crime at the same time.
I just thought it meant that, you know, the Joker is one of these characters that's timeless, because you see the 3 different ones that they pull from.
I mean, he says, "Oh, the Joker's just done something, but we're transferring the Joker to Arkham as we speak." And it's like, so it's just very, I don't know. It feels a bit easy that it took until he knew to see this.
But also in the beginning pages, also hinted that the stuff in the Dark Side War upset reality. That's how Wally's able to try to make contact. Yeah. So maybe something with the Dark Side War, Dark Side of the Anti-Monitor's presence.
Yeah, I would almost maybe...
So close.
I'd speculate that maybe the same sort of like rift or whatever that happened during Dark Side War that's letting Wally have a chance to come back.
Through.
That this is what maybe like the second Joker, as it were, like remembered who he was. Like he got like the insanity peeked through, and that's why this. But like I say, this is like. It's like 2 speech bubbles in this comic. Like, this is something they're going to have to explore in depth.
That's the same. Mostly I'm alright with it. I'm just concerned that, again, if they go without explaining this problem here, it could bother me.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I think this is the one that's got the potential to be worrisome, but so far I like that they're still treating it like a mystery who we don't really know who any of these guys are.
That's good, because we were all worried that he was going to give a backstory to the Joker, and I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's, you know, so far, so good. Some concern, but so far, so good. So, yeah, so Wally shows up. He sort of, like, appears out of the Speed Force. Amusingly, not unlike a certain moment in a certain film recently. However, much better.
It did very much remind me of that, but done properly.
Yeah.
I wonder how much advance time that Johns had to go, hey, watch me do this better.
Possibly. And that's actually the big reveal, because you have that big 1-page splash where he just like that's when he finally says, "My name is Wally West."
Yeah.
Wearing
his Kid Flash costume. So he's younger than he was than the last time we saw him.
Matt, your mic's starting to
again.
Yeah.
So he goes to see Bruce, and he tries to like reconnect. He's like, "You won't remember me. My name is Wally West." And this is where we start to get some of the plot to sort of creep in.
Yeah.
He's like, someone stole
time
from us, and so on. And one thing you might not notice here, you might not have noticed in your first read, you actually see something fly out of the Speed Force and hit the wall with a little tink. And that comes up later, because the first time I read this, I didn't notice this, and I thought the moment later on came out of fucking nowhere. I'm like,
well, and because the focus on this one's on the letter from Flashpoint.
Yeah.
From Flashpoint Batman to Bruce. So, and it also looks like that gets pulled back into the Speed Force, right?
No, it's, well, yeah, it kind of does.
So is that John's retconning himself, going, this was, you know...
No, I don't think it's retconning himself. I think the whole idea that a lot of timey-wimey stuff's going on and people are remembering, and it kind of explains, like, the whole New 52 thing where, you know, how can there be 4 Robins in 5 years?
Right.
Someone stole 10 years, and their memories are all fucked with to make this work. And that's kind of part of the point, is that it's made them weaker, and like, that's what he goes on to say later on. And
that's right.
And you know, I like this scene because I I like that he goes to Batman because he's like Batman figures things out. Like if there's someone that I'm going to tell, give like plant a seed and like put doubt in his head, and Batman will get to the bottom of it.
He'll follow it. He knows that he will not let it go.
Yeah, so give him a hint, and so I like that point from and this is part of John just getting the DCU, and
it's something that I love here about Wally because it's not even worried about himself. He's not concerned with getting back. He's more concerned with making sure someone has the knowledge to fight than he is about getting himself back at this point, which I really love.
No, I agree. And then the next sort of chunk of this first, because it's split into 4 chapters, the next chunk of this first chapter is mainly a look back at like the history of Wally West and sort of explaining his backstory. I don't have tons to say about this. It's mostly just a nice summary.
I imagine it's useful for anyone who doesn't really know much about Wally.
Yeah, if this is because I imagine there's maybe a lot of people who do. This might be the first comic they read, just because
it's very heavily marketed that way. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a lot of exposition, but it's a nice trip down memory lane.
I think it works to make sure you care about Wally, even if you didn't before as well.
Well, and it preserves his Silver Age origin too, to where it's just the same thing that happened to the Flash happens to Wally. But the way that Johns plays with it is like, oh, Barry subconsciously called down the lightning so he wouldn't do this alone, which I like that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like this. Obviously, it'd be stupid to bring him back and not have all the history, but I like that it directly reflects on it. Like, he immediately says, I met the love of my life, her name was Linda Park, and he talks about how she was always his lightning rod, and he mentions that he was the Flash, and, it makes it very, it's like a statement to us, like, this all happened. This is all important, and none of it's... it's kind of gone, but he's going to fight to get it back. Which, for me, is actually one of the most intriguing parts about Rebirth.
Yep.
It's about the characters themselves fighting to get their history back.
Yep.
Which is kind of genius, because in a very meta way, it puts them right in the side of us, because we want it back.
It worked really well in Titans Hunt, because that's essentially what was happening there, where they were fighting to figure out what they lost, And
also, they couldn't remember, or else they give the villain...
Yeah, there was a really interesting duality in that book.
Yeah,
so the villain's Dan Didio was what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Twister and Dan Didio, they're the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think it's, and I know we shit on Didio, and that's what everyone did at WonderCon, is let's poke fun at Dan. And corporate speaking, that's fine. They made money, and he didn't try to make crap with New 52. Yeah. Like, he legitimately tried to do things. So
I think I got a lot of respect for him after hearing his interview with Kevin Smith on Fatman on Batman. He spoke very candidly there, and he never seems like, it just seems like he made a mistake. He didn't intentionally fuck anything up. He wasn't trying to ruin anything for anyone.
Yeah, I think it comes down to he didn't quite completely understand.
Yeah, he doesn't have the same level of understanding that Johns does.
Yeah, because he's an editor. He's not a creative in that way. Like, he's written comics, but he comes at it from a different angle than someone like Johns. So
yeah, and it really feels like the who's in charge of what's actually happening in terms of story has been passed on to someone else, and it kind of for the better. We can already feel the effect. There's just more hope.
I mean, we were talking about legacy. I think. Do you think this will be John's legacy going forward?
Yes.
Yeah.
They called it Rebirth, and that was his thing. He brings back, he brought back the Teen Titans, right? As the team from the 80s, the new Teen Titans mixed with Young Justice. And then, he makes... Hal.
Brought back Hal. Yeah.
He brought back Hal and the Green Lantern Corps. Yeah. He brings back Barry Allen. When something happens at DC, it's a crisis. And this isn't a crisis. This is a rebirth. So that's his legacy going forward, is Johns is the guy that fixes things. Whether you like his retcons or not, whether you think he's a terrible exposition writer, he is great at resetting the story. So, and that's what is needed right now.
Yeah, no one retcons like Geoff Johns.
Nope.
Alright, so chapter 2. Right, so chapter 1 was called Lost. Chapter 2.
Yep.
It's kind of a weird hodgepodge of a chapter. It kind of jumps around a lot of different people. Now, the first couple are a bit more meaty than the rest of them, but we start off with an old man in an old folks' home, being chased by the orderlies.
He's really old, too.
Yeah, he's ancient.
He looks spry for his age. He's proper running.
Well, then you find out about him, but it says he's born in 1917. He was part of a secret group of, what do they call them, mystery men.
Yeah, which is...
I think my favorite line here is he's connected to lightning too.
Yeah, which made me think Jay Garrick, right?
Yeah.
And then the bait and switch happens.
Yeah, and it's Johnny Thunder.
From the Justice Society of America.
Yeah, and one of the things, one of the moments I really like in this scene is when Flash when Wally appears to him, and he shouts out, "Find the Justice Society." The next panel is Johnny Thunder, like with tears in his eyes, saying, "It's all I've been trying to do," and everyone thinks he's crazy, and it's like, oh man, like
it's emotional, isn't it?
This is where they really start hitting me in the feels when they start getting to this stuff.
Well, it says that he's been in the old folks home for 37 years. And, you know, it's like, has he been trying this all that whole time? And people are just looking at him like he's nuts? You know? And they talk about he has a connection with his great-grandson, and, you know, again, it's all about the legacy. Are we going to see a new Johnny Thunder? And he also called Wally the genie, which for those that don't know, that's Johnny Thunder's thing, is he can call upon this genie.
Yeah.
It's very Shazam-esque because they're from the same era. But, and then it moves to Metropolis.
Yeah, we go to a police station in Metropolis, and the what's her face?
Captain Maggie Sawyer.
Sawyer, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. It goes to Sawyer, and she's talking to another detective about a woman they've picked up for stealing a sandwich, of all things.
Because theirs from Food's Free.
Yeah, and like, what country is that?
Yeah.
And the woman they're interviewing, who we never get like a clear look at her. We only get like, you know, a close up of her mouth and things like that. And
we know she's blonde.
We know she's blonde.
See the back of her head.
Yeah, and she's saying that, and they bring up Superman specifically, and they reference. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about Superman 52 later, but they mention, you know, Superman's missing. They might even be dead, and she's okay, and she says it's fine. Like everything will be okay, and
why does she know that?
Yeah, she says, because I've seen the future. Oh dear, calm down, Matt.
I'm with him on this.
And then we see the one bit of evidence she had on her, and it's a Legion ring.
Do you know why this excites me so much?
Why is that?
The Legion is the ultimate legacy.
Yes.
They survived 1,000 years, and their legacy still lives on, and that sums up this comic perfectly, really.
Well, because they base themselves off of young Superboy Clark Kent, and if he can make a difference, then why can't we? And that's why I love the Legion so much, is they are the continuation of Superman, and it's across the galaxy. Like, they're not all from Earth, they're from all different planets, but they come back to Earth to protect the universe. And they are a Legion, they're not a league, they're not a team. It's
worth, I think it's worth pointing out, like this second chapter, the first one we went to was who was it we went to? I forget now. It was Joy of Thunder. It was Joy of Thunder. And then it's went to a Legion character. And those are both things. Like the JSA and the Legion of Superheroes are both things that, like, we had versions of them in the New 52, but they weren't good. Yeah, they weren't good. They weren't what people wanted. I mean, some people liked Earth 2, to be fair, but
it's okay, but it's a different telling.
Yeah.
I like Earth 2, but it's not the Justice Society.
No, it's not JSA now. But like, no one liked the Legion of Superheroes in the New 52. No one. It was terrible. I read issue 1. It was atrocious.
Well, it was Legion Lost again, and that's not the traditional Legion. Like, we're talking, and these are also both teams that Johns worked heavily with in his time at DC, with his whole massive run on JSA, and then in Action Comics, he brings back the classic Legion. So
his story of Superman and the Legion is in my top 3 Superman stories. It's just fantastic.
And this is why we're friends, Connor.
And then after that scene, we jump to Choi and Ray Palmer, and this not only, like, we've not had much happen.
Dean, man.
Sorry,
I'm not even sure. I said, what a racist Dean. I'm not even sure he's from Hong Kong.
Oh yeah, she's deporting back to Hong Kong. Yeah, that was really weird. But so, what I like about this actually, again, it's a character who's not really had much justice done to them in New 52, but it also ties a little bit back into the main plot, and this idea that someone stole something. Because Ray tells Choi, like, I've left you an atom belt I need you to shrink down and let it home to me. Come and find me. But the scene ends with a really weird cliffhanger because it says he discovered the microverse and something's been changing stuff. But he says, this is extremely important. This is the last thing it says. When you reach the first world of the microverse, you're going to meet someone. They're going to seek you out. Whatever you do, whatever they say, do not. And then that's when the screen turns off. And I'm like, okay,
what?
First of all, Johns, you teasing motherfucker. Secondly, but this feels like it ties into the main plot of.
I'm really intrigued as to where this is going to pick up, because there's not an Atom book, is there?
I would assume this might end up showing up in either the JLA or a JSA book at some point.
That'd be
That's
great.
not a bad shout.
I feel like it'd be one of those two if they don't announce an Atom book at some point.
Yeah, because I mean, in the New 52, Atom, most of his stuff was with Frankenstein, right?
Yeah,
and Shade.
Agents of Shade.
Yeah.
And then we had
He really wasn't Atom. He was just Dr. Palmer.
Yeah, and we had Lady Atom, who ended up being Crime Syndicate.
Yeah.
That's not how video games work, Johns. That's one of my favorite comments from the internet.
So and then we jump to Blue Beetle, another character who hasn't exactly had a nice
Hasn't
time.
fared well either. Yeah.
New 52, and again we have this idea of legacy. We have Cord, we have Jamie, and the idea he's the young reluctant hero, and Cord's going to help him. And I mean, a lot of this section of the book does feel like it's setting up lots of other things for other books, but it also all feels like it's backing up the idea that we're back to legacy, we're back to caring about these characters continuing. And
that was Blue Beetle too, in a nutshell. It was all about legacy, from Dan Garrett to Ted Cord to Jaime Reyes.
Yeah.
So,
and of course, Dr. Fate shows up as well.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere, like the
that's what Dr. Fate is, though, isn't it? He always just shows up out of nowhere. It's like, I got this,
exactly.
Guys.
Well, I didn't realize
He's got
this.
a much better look than other ones. So.
I didn't realize this when I read this the first time. I read it twice now, but the actual Blue Beetle book that's coming, Dr. Fate's one of the main characters.
Yeah.
He's
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it's Dr. Fate and Cord trying to figure out the mystical properties. That's the big thing here, is they confirm that the Beetles actually, or the Scarabs actually.
The Scarab, which up to this point has been alien technology from the Reach, is now mystical, but we don't know from who.
Yeah.
Or what. So that's
very
cool.
interesting that Fate looks very much to be Kent Nelson.
Okay. Now, how would you know that?
Well, we've got the current book, and we have a Dr. Fate, but his costume isn't like that. He's been wearing like a hoodie and jeans, basically, with the helmet. Yeah. And at the end of the last issue, 13, I believe it was, Kent Nelson showed up, and he's he's a family friend of his parents.
Gotcha.
And he's introducing him. It looked like they were building towards him mentoring him a little bit.
Give him the helmet, Naboo.
But here you get the close up of the eyes, and it doesn't look like the new guy at all, and it just doesn't sound like him.
Okay, I'm gonna give you that one, because the look like, how do you know what he even looks like under that mask? But you know what I mean, just based off of the eyes.
Yeah, just like the body shape, all of it just doesn't like.
Well, he looks like classic Dr. Fate. Like this is Fate from the JSA. When I read that.
Yep. Also, I love the look on Ted Cord's face when he says magic.
Yes.
It's like a little giddy child, isn't it? It's like,
because
magic.
What gets lost about Ted Cord is he is this fun-loving character, and he's a tinkerer, even down to his adventures with whatever team he's been on, whether it's the Justice League or just Booster. So, and it's good to see him separated from Booster, because for the last 15 years, it's just been those two, the blue and the gold. So it's good to see him team up with another gold character in Fate.
Wonder if that was intentional.
Maybe, you never know. But yeah.
Then next we get there's a sort of quick page of different characters getting a little bit. See a little bit of Damien, a little bit of Jessica Cruz, and just this idea of legacy, and they all kind of set things up.
If I'm wrong, they've aged Damien up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
He was 10 before, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thought so.
Well, he was 10 when he showed up, but I mean,
It's been a couple years.
Yeah, I'd like to think that he's aged a little bit since he first.
Yeah,
but he's officially 18 because he's going to be in Teen Titans.
Exactly, that makes sense. They're like, okay, he's going to be in Teen Titans.
It does almost feel like that was there just to shut up the inevitable section of the internet that would have complained that he's not a teen.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere Damien shows up and starts trying to be the boss, I'm fine.
Also, I vastly prefer the idea that he's 13 than 10 anyway. Have you ever seen a 10-year-old in public and thought, yeah, I can take him? Yeah, that's how I feel. Damien needs to be at least 13.
No, Pete, I've never thought that.
Yeah,
10-year-olds are terrifying. They have like no filter and they will do anything.
Not in a straight fight. Like, yeah, I'm a grown man. I could take a 10-year-old.
Why are you thinking this?
Because he thinks he's Batman.
Well, no. Because I'm thinking like you think of Damien fighting criminals in the books and stuff, and it's like you see
if he pulls out a fucking sword, I'm gonna shit myself.
Okay, if the 10-year-old pulls out a katana, I might back off. All right. Not that I'm planning it.
He would. He might.
Not that I'm saying I'm planning on attacking a 10-year-old. I'm just saying you read a book about a 10-year-old beating up a criminal,
and then you say you're not planning on attacking a 10-year-old,
and then you see a 10-year-old in real life, and you go, "Yeah, this is a bit silly." Like, so 13's a bit better. Is all I'm saying.
Anyways,
and Jessica Cruz sets up, Green Lanterns because Hal's like team up with Baz, like that's what she's talking about, and
the guy with the gun.
Yeah, the guy with the gun. Yeah. And I really liked her. Who's Sinestro?
Yeah.
Which neatly sets up Hal Jordan, the Green Lanterns, as well, because Sinestro's a big part of that. But it's just a funny thing that she doesn't know who Sinestro is, because...
Well, she's just barely Green Lantern. She's powering up until the Dark Side War. So...
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about her becoming Green Lantern later, when we talk about Justice League. But yeah, so... but the last thing, the thing that closes off this chapter... which again ties into the end of Justice League, which I know it's a bit weird we're talking about this first, but this is the big one this week, so
yeah,
we're talking about this first. So we see Pandora, the mystery character who was popping up a lot at the start of the New 52.
Yeah, in every #1 issue of the New 52, she's somewhere in the background.
Yeah, and I remember
ruining lives.
Why did she have her own series?
I don't know. I never read
it. That's the answer for the New 52, because money.
Because I mean, there was excitement when the New 52 started, and when we noticed her in the first issue of every single one, it was like, oh, what's this leading to? And it led to, well, not much. It was a bit of a dud. But the important thing is she's talking to someone, and I'm going to read out a bit of her dialogue here. I think this is...
Alright.
Because again, we're setting up who is this person who's stole 10 years, who is this person that's affecting the universe, right? And particularly the second panel, she's like, skepticism, doubt, corruption, all things your cold heart believes in. But in the end there was hope, and the heroes of the universe embody it. Their hope, their devotion, their love for one another will vanquish what you have done. It may be over for me, but they will prove you wrong. They will prove that you are nothing but a lonely, cruel monster. Well, she doesn't finish the word monster. She gets exploded into...
I'd have gone with eviscerated.
Eviscerated, yeah, also another word, yeah. And she's
I've seen that somewhere before.
Yeah.
It is very... Again, it's another meta thing where if Wally is the fans, she is the New 52. She personifies that.
Yeah. And it's almost... I almost feel like they've kind of redeemed her a little bit, just by her saying, look, they've got hope and they're going to defeat you. Like, she's almost saying they're going to fight back and they're going to win, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Well, she is the Pandora that opened the box. So, like, if anyone's going to root for mankind, it's going to be her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the end of chapter 2, and that's Legacy.
Legacy.
Sorry?
Very appropriately titled.
Yeah. Yes.
Very appropriately. And then the next title, it's still kind of jumping around different people in the DCU, but obviously it's less about Legacy. Although you could argue this is kind of about Legacy. So we found out in Justice League that Wonder Woman, I was going to say Superwoman there, what the hell am I thinking?
Yeah.
Wonder Woman apparently has a twin brother.
Yeah.
And I think that's what her present day series in Rucka's books.
Because that's the first arc is called Lies.
Yeah,
Lies.
It's going to be about that. And of course, it's worth noting that baby Darkseid is still a thing.
Okay, so I read this before I read Justice League.
Right. Yeah, you were confused as shit.
Why the hell is Darkseid a baby? I'm not confused.
I was like, what the hell happened in Justice League when I got to this bit?
Yeah.
Which we'll get to, but like Grail covered in all this blood. I'm just like, man, Johns is so great at creating creepy villains, like especially in Flash, and he's done another one here with Grail. So
yeah, so this is basically, this chapter's still about things that we've lost for the most part. So we go to the site of Superman 52, which again we'll talk about later. But everyone's around. We see Martian Manhunter, we see Supergirl, we see a bunch of different characters. But the next page, it talks about, this is where the real theme of this chapter comes in, and it's about love. And it's about what they lost other than time. It was relationships and things like that. And he does it with one that we completely lost when we met to New 52. He does it with Green Arrow and Black Canary, Ollie and Dinah. And they have this moment where they see each other, and they've never really met. But, like, as Wally says in the narration, like, they feel a spark that they can't explain. And it does this nice thing in the page where it shows you the rest of their, like, day almost. Side by side, and with both of them at the end, like just sitting in their beds lonely, not knowing why they feel
lost.
Yeah.
Why? It's a powerful page. It's the layout as well, the way they're literally parallel.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those main things that people feel was lost, and you know, I mean, we lost a lot of relationships. In fact, almost all of the relationships went. You know, we lost all of them pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything but maybe the Bat Family, like the closest members of the Bat Family, like Bat and like Bruce and Dix.
I was thinking specifically romance-wise.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
We lost all of them. Don't you crack a joke. Don't you crack a joke.
It was right for the picking, but...
And by the way, guys, not a DC thing, but I just want to say, Captain America already has a boyfriend. It's called America, right?
All right, someone please draw that. Please. Boy, if you're listening, please, I commission.
Is that how it works? I commission you, and then they have to do it.
That reminds me of The Office when Michael thinks that to declare bankruptcy, you just have to go out of the office and shout, "I declare bankruptcy."
But yeah, no, with the relationships, back to Rebirth.
Yeah.
That's what makes the Superman, the Lois and Clark story so great and fulfilling, is you have Superman with Lois and their family.
And they have the history. That's the thing.
And it's all there. So.
Also, I don't know what it is. I almost hope that Superman keeps... I know he's not, but I almost like him to keep the beard. I think for some reason, ever since Pac's action one where he had the beard, I feel like, you know what? Superman kind of suits a beard.
He's rocking the beard, isn't he?
Yeah. I feel like that was a test run for what was coming.
Yeah. So, yeah, this next scene, actually, because we're talking about Superman quite rightly, this is a very important one. So we've got original Superman and Lois and their son John. They're at a motel, and we'll talk more about them later because we're going to talk about Lois and Clark issue 8. But this was a very interesting scene because Clark goes to grab some lunch and a mysterious character shows up who doesn't tell him who he is, but he says, "You can call me Mr. Oz." We'll come back to who that might be at the end, because there's a winning theory right now. But what he says to Clark is very interesting. Yeah, he says, "To tell you something in the wake of this tragedy, you and your family are not what you believe you are, and neither was the fallen Superman." That is extremely interesting. But the fact is it kind of makes more sense, because this whole book is telling us that this isn't a different universe from pre-Flashpoint. It's that time was stolen and things were altered. And that makes me go, well, wait a minute, how can we have an original Superman who's got a wife and a kid if technically New 52 Superman is just him de-aged? But the interesting part for me, really, is that it's not just that he's not what he thinks he is, it's what New 52 Superman isn't what he thought he was either.
Right.
So my guess would be that this Clark is real Clark, and he always has been. Right. But when the New 52 alterations happened, when the hand was waved, like there was a splinter, and like the New 52 Superman was either, to borrow something from the Flash, a time remnant, or like some weird copy, or I don't know, but There's something
You want
to
to
this.
find out?
Yeah.
Do you think we'll hear this in Action Comics or Superman?
Well,
it could be either, to be honest.
Yeah, because it's the same Superman. Just Jurgens is dealing with the Metropolis stuff, and I think Tomasi's dealing with the
Stuff with John.
Yeah. With the family stuff.
The Superman's family, Lana's going to be in that, and that's New 52 Lana, which is really cool. I like that preview that we've seen earlier this week. I love that she's going to be a mainstay.
Lana was actually one of the best parts of the New 52 stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
From
Like, she was consistently great.
Well, that was because of Pac. Yeah.
It was because of Pac. Yeah.
He's the biggest casualty in all this is that he's not on a book yet.
Yeah. I was upset when he wasn't announced as one of the Rebirth books, but so now this is very interesting. I am really excited to see how this all turns out, and the one true Superman is rightfully.
If you're having someone orchestrate to remove all hope and make things dark, you take out true Superman.
Yeah.
And you replace him with an imposter. So you know who this is. This is Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder's behind all this.
Is that who the hand is on the front?
That's who
Zack Snyder's the one that's
God.
Oh dear. But no, really, really cool. We'll talk more about Superman later, obviously. So then we jump over to Aquaman and Mira, and Aquaman proposes, and so it's a nice scene. It's a nice scene building up what Aquaman's going. But I think the really important part of this is that it's this moment of love returning that gives Wally enough strength to find Linda, because he couldn't find her before.
Confused me a little bit. I thought they were already married when I read the Johns run. I thought
10 years have been stolen, though.
Yeah, but in the Johns run in New 52, I thought they were married there.
They did. They married. They had kids. They had Jay. Oh, God damn it, Kira. Yeah. Jay and the other girl. I can't remember her name. And that's where they left off. But yeah, but if 10 years have been stolen from everybody, then that whole relationship's gone.
Wait, but that was in the New 52.
No, not in the New 52. Wally wasn't around in the New 52.
No. We're talking about Aquaman and Mira.
Oh, yeah. I gotcha. I thought we were talking about...
Yeah, I was lost for a minute there.
Yeah, so was I. The family cat bit, I sidetracked.
I don't remember them being married in the New 52, and I read most of it. Like, I read all of John's run.
They called each other husband and wife, but it was more like a ceremonial thing.
Right, okay.
So...
Maybe
he says
that must be where I've got it
custom.
from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they're already married as far as Atlantean law is concerned, but he's proposing like a human because he's wanting to get married.
I'll accept that as a very good answer.
But anyway, so this is him to find Linda, and this might be the most heartbreaking scene that we're about to get to. So we see Linda, and have we seen Linda in New 52? Has she popped up in Flash or anything?
Nope.
I can't
remember.
Just been Barry and Iris and that stuff.
Yeah. So she's trying to get into the scene of where Superman's went missing or possibly died, and I like that the effect of that's still being felt throughout a lot of this. Like it's a big thing that's just happened.
Yeah, even if it wasn't the right Superman and our Superman, still had an impact.
Yeah, still did something. So Wally's narration here, it all talks about how like he's missing her and how it's been torture and like so on, and he appears to her like he did to Batman earlier. And he smiles and says, "I'm back," and then there's a lot of tension here, and then she eventually says, "I don't know you," and it's still a lot.
That was like in Temple of Doom, where Mola Ram plunges his hand into the chest and shows you your still beating heart. That's what this scene did to me.
Yeah, that's hard.
I was on the bus in public, and I started welling up when I was reading this bit here. I was like, must hold it in. Let's hold it in.
Do you know what the one thing this does for me though is that the moment when she eventually remembers him, it's some point,
be that much better.
Yeah, I guess Titans is mainly going to be Wally like centric because he might be like it'll be him and Dick being the leaders probably, but I do like it does make me think, why isn't there a Wally West book coming out of this?
Yeah,
because I feel like you have a story here to tell about him trying to get back to Linda.
I think we might get one soon, but they didn't want to announce anything because if you announce that,
that's true.
You ruin this. So I think we'll get one in a few months.
Well, do you think they're going to be like, oh, by the way, that Scott Lobdell Red Hood book? Oh, secretly all along it was actually a Wally West book by whoever we want. Jeff Parker. There you go.
I think
if I reach into the internet right now, I would punch you. You don't even put that out there. You don't even do that.
Obviously, I think they're going to start seeding it in Flash because we got that, and I think
it's twice monthly. Williamson really only talked about the one arc.
Yeah,
so there's going to be a lot of. They're going to get through that first arc in 3 months.
Yeah,
so.
I'm hoping
3 months. Not even 3 months.
Well, because if it's 2 a month, and
is it six? Okay, yeah.
Well, I don't know how long it is, but typically
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm hoping that Wally's a pretty major character in the Flash as well, and not just Titans. Yeah. I'm hoping he's really felt.
I feel like he might be just because the solicits.
Yeah.
Had to be vague. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were saying don't read it before Rebirth.
Yeah.
I mean, he's obviously around in there. It's just how much.
Yeah.
So that was loved that chapter, and then we move on to the 4th chapter, which there's a couple of quick glimpses of things like they tease like the plot of Batman, like these 2 new mystery characters that are going to be invading Batman. There's a little tease for Constantine with Swamp Thing.
But
it's a great insult there though from Constantine, you bloody turnip.
But the main thing here is that the Wally's basically just giving up. Like if Linda can't get him back, he doesn't really believe that anyone can. And he sees Boomerang, he sees Cyborg, he sees Dick, who's got the blue suit.
And before all this, they were best friends, right?
Yeah, that
was mentioned. So he's not getting through to anybody, not his villains, not his coworkers, not his best friend. But there's one last person he has to try.
Yeah, because the last thing in the page with Dick on it is then I see him.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not at the last person yet. We're at the other Wally West.
Right.
And this is perhaps the only part of retconning in the entire thing that I think it's a little bit clunky because like they brought in this new Wally West, the be Kid Flash, who is black because they want to match the TV show, but everyone still wants original Wally West back. But then they can't really take away the new Wally West because then it looks really bad because you've introduced a black Wally West and then
I just before there's a lot of people saying, oh yeah, you just want you want to be nostalgic, so you want your white heroes back, but it's not that. It's just that this new Wally just wasn't that interesting.
See, I've not even read anything in this new Wally. It's nothing about the new Wally. That's not why we wanted old Wally West back. We wanted old Wally West back because he has the history, because we've read his past, his wife, his kids. We care about him. We care
exactly.
about
him. He could have been any race, and if it's the same character, we're gonna want him back.
He could have looked exactly the same and just been a young Wally, and we still would have missed what we lost. Yeah,
exactly. This could have been a new kid Wally West that was white, and we still would have wanted the old one back. Yep. So that's I think that's a ridiculous statement. And so he sees him, and he talks about when he explains the whole both named after the same grandfather, they're cousins. Little convoluted, but it fixes the issue, and we get to keep him around. And who knows, he might be a really good part of Teen Titans, which is where he's going to be popping up.
Well, if it's not written by Venditti, he might actually be good. Never know.
And who's writing Teen Titans? Do you remember?
Teen Titans? No, I'm not sure.
It's Benjamin Percy, I think.
Oh,
okay.
I've been enjoying his Green Arrow a lot, so.
Yeah. And he writes Emiko really well.
Yeah. And he did that. He did those 2 issues on Detective, right?
Yeah.
They were fantastic.
I didn't read those ones. Might have to track those down. But yeah, so hey, more. I mean, if you can make it work, that's great. I always felt Tomasi wrote the better Damian than Morrison. So
definitely.
Well, then he gets to the main person here. So he goes to Barry Allen. And he talks about Barry Allen smiling. He talks about Barry Allen bringing all the kids pizza that he's just saved from a fire. And he's not even trying to get back anymore. He just says, like, that's enough for me. If I can say something to him, I can die in peace. He's giving up. He's ready to die. Like, he's almost giving up hope. Kind of like almost, you could argue, the fans might have been towards the end of the New 52.
It's time to let the past go.
Yeah, like it's time to give it all up, yeah. And, I think for a lot of us, we got to the end of the New 52, the amount of books we were reading from DC had diminished drastically from the start of it. And I think that's almost what this represents. So he shows up to Barry, and he's basically saying goodbye, and he thanks him for his life and everything he's done for him.
And this is where the tears came. This is like, they're not being held back anymore.
No, this is where tears proper came. So Wally starts to fade into the Speed Force. And he starts to fade back, and Barry's like, I don't understand, you will one day. And basically before he's dying though, he's like, go to Batman, ask him about the letter. You know, he's trying to plant those seeds again. He's trying to get Barry and Bruce, who are the more detective-y ones, to come together and try and figure this shit out, because he wants them to fix it. And he's literally, like, I'm looking at the panels now and I'm almost getting misty-eyed just talking about it, because he's fading into the Speed Force, and there's just that moment where Barry's eyes just open and he says Wally. And it's like the first time anyone in the DC Universe has acknowledged Wally West in 6 years.
Well, and before that too, the one line that stuck out with me was Wally going, "Thank you for an amazing life."
Yeah, that's the one that gets me as well.
And if that is Johns using this to be the fans and himself, it's thanks for being there. Even if they don't have it now, you can't take away my memories.
Yeah, it's like you might not have been there for 5 years, but we had you for 20, 30, whatever it was.
Exactly. Still, thank you.
Yeah.
And just the moment when Barry grabs his hand and pulls him out of the Speed Force, and he's back, and they hug and they smile at each other. And when was the last time in a DC book we've seen someone smile? Really, it's been a while.
That's not Joker.
That's not Joker. This is the scene
also,
of the comic.
I take umbrage too with when they hug, and it's looks like it's an aged up Wally from where he was, right? Because he's about the same height as Barry when they hug, and when he says, "How could I ever forget you?" and those a-holes that added Hail Hydra to that image, while funny, takes away from this moment, and but
I can't ruin it for me. I will not let it.
Yeah, it doesn't affect anything. I don't know what you're complaining about.
No, I'm just saying it's such a nice, I think it's Gary Frank who drew it.
It should have been exempt from your memeing.
Thank you.
Keep your memes away from our moment, because that scene. It wouldn't surprise me if at the end of the year, when we're looking back at the year since Rebirth started and picking our favourite moments, it wouldn't surprise me if this moment's still near the top, if not number one. Because it's just, it's Wally finally coming back and Barry acknowledging it. And of course what follows is Wally explains the time lost. And it's interesting to know, because I remember when Flashpoint just happened and we weren't sure if Barry could remember everything. It was very unclear.
Yeah.
But it becomes more clear here that over time the memory just got muddled and everything went away.
Kind of how it does with comics, is you kind of forget these things that happen because it's about what's happening now, but not happened then. Yeah.
And this is where sort of the main themes and the idea of building the plot outside the meta idea is like someone stole this from us, someone stole 10 years, someone's messing with it. I don't know who they are, but I know they're there. They did this to weaken us, to weaken everyone. And because Barry's even like, was it Thawne? Like, is it him that's doing this?
Right.
And he's like, no, it's something else. It's someone else.
More powerful.
I just got a flashback of the opening monologue from Arrow as I said that.
Right? Yeah, I know. I was thinking.
I'm sorry.
I was like, what did you just do?
Something else, someone else. But as he's narrating, this is when it goes to the back to the Batcave, and Batman sort of wandering through the Batcave, and he notices where the thing hit the wall before, when the Speed Force was there. As Wally's continually talking about this guy, someone's even more powerful than Darkseid. It's a force out there that we've never met, and he sets up the themes. He's like, it's going to be a war between hope and despair, of love and apathy, and it's like it's bringing this all back. It's like we're all wanting this hopeful world to come back, where everything doesn't have to be gritty, where everything doesn't have to try and be dark. It's kind of like, if you look at the movies, it's almost the same thing that's happened to DC movies after Dark Knight. Dark Knight was amazing, but they've misunderstood why it was amazing, and they've tried to make everything dark and gritty since.
Yep.
The same thing.
Which kind of.
Yeah, and the same thing's kind of happened in comic over a longer period of time, from a certain era. And this is where things get really meta. And then at the end of this page, we see Batman chipping away at the rock. And it says, even now, Barry, you've turned the page and Batman's holding the comedian's pin with the blood on it from Watchmen. And it says, we're being watched. And it's kind of
just reading it again.
I know, and it's the kind of thing where you hear a week in advance that Johns is bringing Watchmen into DCU and that it's connected to stuff. And you hear that on its own. And you think, oh, this sounds like a stunt. It sounds kind of ballsy.
It's a brave move.
But then you hear the idea that, oh, Dr. Manhattan's the one who stole time. Dr. Manhattan's going to be the villain.
Yeah, we get that in the next little epilogue bit, don't we?
Of the DC Universe. And it's kind of already been hinted because we've seen the people exploding like Rorschach did.
It's identical, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep. Amazing.
And so you get that, but just the way this is revealed, the way they build up to this, that there's someone, because they don't even know who it is. They don't know who the Watchmen are. No. They don't know who any of these characters are. He's just saying someone's watching us, and as he says the word "watch," we see Batman holding the pin, and it's this perfect little touch.
I just want to say, like, how wonderfully planted this was from the first page of this book, where
the clock,
not even the clock, just the layout. It's the same stylistic layout as Watchmen. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very good. I mean, I knew going in because I couldn't hold off on the spoilers, but I kind of almost wish I didn't because my mind would have been blown, I think.
Yeah, that's one hell of a reveal.
Well, and it ends too in like a compliment to the open, which I didn't realize till now.
Yeah, because it ends with the clock from Watchmen mirroring the watch from the start of the.
Yeah.
Because we get to the epilogue and we go through space and we end on Mars and we see the watch being broken apart and fixed as dialogue from the original Watchmen book is over it. So, because some people mistook this as narration, but it's not. It's actually just a direct lift
from
the original book, and it ends with the yellow clock counting down to midnight, which was obviously a big thing in Watchmen as well. So that's the end of the book, and it kind of. It just, the whole thing, above being like an apology and a return of hope, and like I say, it has this idea of the heroes going to be fighting for hope, and fighting to get back to what they were, and fighting to get their relationships back. But even this idea of the clock counting down, and that Manhattan's this really all-powerful villain, for me really works. I think you can be cynical about him, including Watchmen, but I think the meta-commentary and the way it's being used is actually kind of the perfect way to use Watchmen.
Yeah, it's the same thing you just said about Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight trilogy in general, where this is the same thing where it's Watchmen that was it for comics. That's the shift, essentially. That's what's to aspire to be.
Which, I mean, obviously Watchmen at the time, the point was it was a deconstruction of superheroes.
Yeah, it was what you shouldn't do, essentially.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
It's what not to be in the long run.
I bet you Alan Moore is pretty pissed off.
Oh, I'm sure he's screaming out in the moors somewhere. He's just
out there. There's just a beard shouting in the hills.
He's more man than beard. More beard than man, rather.
With his fist in the air, just screaming to the heavens.
Just poking out through the beard.
Yeah, cause he looks like Cousin It. This is the first time Johns has repurposed stuff that Moore worked on, which most would take as that's right, you write comics, right? This becomes part of the bigger thing. And no one ever touched Watchmen because it's this thing that is untouchable and it's out on its own, and I remember when Johns was doing the Green Lantern stuff based off of the Tiger story, and Moore was not happy about it. You can't think of your own stuff, so you go back to 30-year-old Pish, and
he was not happy when they did that. The before Watchmen stuff a few years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was very unhappy with them then.
Yeah, right. Well, I never read any of that because that felt kind of weird and unnecessary to me. Where I feel like how it's been used here, because I don't necessarily think we're going to have like Rorschach. I mean, Rorschach technically should be dead. If this is set after Watchmen, it should be.
He should.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get Rorschach. I don't think we're going to get necessarily Night Owl or Silk Spectre.
I don't think we need them.
Although I have heard some people are theorising that the two new characters in Batman are Night Owl and Silk Spectre. We'll see how that plans out. However, Mr. Oz could be Ozymandias.
On this one, yep.
That would stand some reason because he would know about what Manhattan's doing.
That was the first thing that sprung to mind when I read the name.
Yeah.
Right. Because when you read Watchmen, who's the real hero of it? And it kind of comes out that Ozymandias, you have to sacrifice a few to save the many. And, and if he's working to prevent Manhattan, who is this cold individual that has no feeling because he's pure logic?
It's just got no humanity left, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Humanity is important, is the kind of the whole point we're going to get at, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
So needless to say, we all loved Rebirth.
Absolutely.
Filled me with nothing but optimism for the DCU going forward. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be some bad books there. They can't all be great all the time, but
no.
And obviously some aren't going to hit our personal tastes. They could be good, but just not for us.
Right.
But very optimistic.
Just like to say as well, even just it's still in the issue. When you turn, you get that splash page of all of them, of everyone.
Yeah.
Just yes.
Yeah, Wally's new costume down there on the corner.
Yeah,
which is just an updated version of Kid Flash's. Just red yellow.
It's a red and black
yeah
costume. They couldn't just make him the Flash because there's already a Flash, and they can't make him Kid Flash. And he even says in the book, there's even a line that he specifically says, my days of Kid Flash are behind me, or something to that effect.
Yeah, he's grown up from that, like the rest of the Titans have.
Yeah, it would be silly for him to go back to being that. So they kind of have to give him his own.
And it's a better costume than the one Johns gave him in Rebirth, which was just a darker version.
Yeah, that was silly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like this.
I wasn't fine with this. Plus, it shows off his red hair, and we all know Connor needs a hero.
I do. I haven't got anyone else. I mean, look at that splash page and find one other.
You've got Mira.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing. Female gingers don't get the same shit that men do.
This is true.
They just don't.
This is true.
Nope.
And it's unfair. I'm sick of it, frankly. So, this is my hope.
Yes.
All right. What do we want to talk about next? So we've got 3 other books we're going to talk about today. 3 other really notable ones that all sort of led into Rebirth in some way, and that was Justice League, Superman 52, and Lois and Clark issue 8. So Justice League, I think we'll jump to next since it ties into.
We don't have to go nearly as in depth as we did with Rebirth, since that was setting the table.
No, I really don't. I even think I could, to be honest, because I do have some criticisms of Justice League. I think the last chunk of it, where it set up different things, it set up things with Wonder Woman, it set up the chair, Night Owl at the end, or not Night Owl, Owlman.
Owlman.
Well, they're fucking so similar. One's evil and one's not, but you know what I mean.
Are we sure? We don't know anything anymore.
They're both, they're both owl people. Anyway,
Baby Darkseid makes an appearance.
Baby Dark. So they set up a lot of things. I do have to criticise a lot of the first half of this issue, and it's a criticism that I'm going to have of the last 4 issues. Is it feels like they've been standing in the same battlefield for the last 4 issues with not a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
It's weird how slowly this arc has progressed. I feel like a lot, it goes really quickly for half the arc, and then it just stops and goes, we're just kind of waiting for the end now.
Yeah, it really felt like that. And
it's been his entire run on Justice League.
But the thing is, it's delayed so many issues. They could have had a certain time had he just trimmed down the story to what he needed.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I don't know.
He is great with these ideas of things, though. This is his retelling of Crisis, almost. Because you have the Anti-Monitor showing up, you have the Crime Syndicate, Alexander Luthor Jr., plays a part in it, although it changes ever so slightly.
Who apparently had a fling with Superwoman at one point.
Well, yeah, but that's what they had, because in the original Crisis story, Alexander Luthor was the main hero, right? And then they turned and made him the Shazam backwards. I'm not going to try to pronounce that because that was a weird word. But here, it's still Lois Lane. It's just Superwoman, evil Lois Lane. So, but yeah, it's weird. And they turned him into Baby Darkseid, which isn't what I thought they would do.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope it means that we can have a few years without Darkseid now, while he goes off and grows up and trains or whatever he has to do.
maybe in 10 years we can have a Darkseid story again, but right now, leave him off the table, please. That'd be nice.
But yeah, you get the Steve Trevor stuff, and you find out that the reason that didn't work was because he wasn't the first man to step foot on Themyscira, and that's where you get the reveal about Diana's brother, Jason.
It's a weird reveal for me because I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Jason!
It's one of those where if it wasn't being handled by a writer like Rucka, I'd feel really cautious about it.
Yeah, which I'm sure, because Rucka and John still are pretty close. Even when Rucka had his big falling out with DC, I still think they kept in contact enough that I'm sure he pitched it to Rucka, and Rucka's like, "Oh yeah, I can work with that." Because had you had a different story, I don't think that would have pulled. He could have pulled out a different way.
Hey, for all we know, it was the other way around. But what if Rucka asked him to set it up?
Pitched it, yeah, that could be it too. So
yeah, it could be that he just that was his story, and Johns was like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll just throw it in."
Yeah.
No, I think this was the weakest DC book I read this week.
Just
because it was muddled, just because a lot of it, there was a lot of downtime where I felt like nothing was really happening. Some of the big moments were nice though. I mean, Jessica Cruz getting a Green Lantern ring, cool.
Yeah, that was how we knew that she wasn't taking part in Green Lanterns. That would have been such an awesome reveal with her popping out with the costume on.
I really loved that page.
Yeah. Well, honestly, like that's something in Johns' run of Green Lantern. It was always fun whenever we got the such and such. You have the ability to overcome great fear. Welcome to Green Lantern Corps. That was always a fun moment. Yeah. So, and it still is. If it's done well, it still is.
All that green flame around her. Oh, it's good.
Yeah. It's cool. And then you have Lex in the new suit wearing Superman symbol.
Yeah.
And instead of pinging, it's saying Lex. Because that's what he needs more of, is an ego. So,
it makes me excited to see him in action, though.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure Juggins will handle that well. And it'll still be very Superman focused, which is nice. I don't want it to just be Lex. It has to be their relationship.
Paul Cornell wrote a pretty great Lex too in Action Comics years and years ago when it was strictly him. He was looking for the Orange Lantern stuff.
Yeah,
so,
that was fallout after Blackest Night because he wanted the Orange Lantern back. Yeah.
Yep. So that was pretty great. So I don't mind Lex being the focus. So and he was used pretty well here throughout Justice League. I think my favorite arc outside of the Atlanta stuff that Johns did was the Amazovirus, and that was very Lex heavy. So.
You know, so it's a good run as a whole.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah.
For the most part. Alright, so I think that'll do for Justice League. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about that. Let's jump over to Superman 52.
Yeah.
You didn't like this, Matt?
I did.
Alright, okay.
I don't like that comic books make me feel emotions.
Okay.
I've had a very tumultuous relationship with Superman in the New 52. It hasn't been traditionally my Superman, and for a while I dropped it when Liddell was writing it because it was I couldn't atrocious it anymore. Yeah. And I had it, then I had to come back 4 months later when Johns took it over, and it got better, but it still wasn't great, and it's just kind of been Superman since.
Yeah, something was off, and I think Tomasi's done a good job in this. Let's start to make it feel a bit more like Superman. Although I'm still happy we're getting.
That's the weird thing, though. If they'd just given this to someone like Tomasi or whatever the whole time and just had him written like this, I wouldn't really have felt the need to have taken this drastic a step. I would have been happy.
Because the main problem is they try to update Superman so much, and you really can't, because he still has to kind of be a man out of time, where, not like in the Captain America way, but he is from the heartland of America, where time goes a little bit slower. And he has a different set of values. And I'll never forget in the Lobdell run where he made Clark say booty call. And that's just not something I think Clark would say.
Counteract something Connor just said about No, I agree. If it had been written that way the whole time, people wouldn't be as upset. However, in a weird way, I'm kind of glad he'd been terrible.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually glad that it's not only original Superman, but the fact that it's with Lois and they have the history. And I feel like had we had a more decent Superman from New 52, we might not have got that like that.
I agree,
Right?
but I'm saying it wouldn't have been missed half as much if Superman had just been good.
Right.
But something always felt like,
Yeah.
even when it was good, something felt kind of off. Like something
Yep.
was
Because
amiss.
the Action Comics stuff that Morrison ran pretty much stood on its own. That
Yeah.
didn't really
And it
impact
was
too
not
much.
and it was not very good.
Yeah, well, I think if you go back and read it as a chunk, it reads fine.
It reads much better the second time around.
Yeah. So, but it's also it was meant to be his story about Golden Age Superman, not the let's kick off the New 52 with this version. So that's why it doesn't fit. And then
Yeah.
when Pack and Cooter took over, action got a lot better when it wasn't involved in
You had
tie-ins.
there was
What?
one arc that was supposed to who was it? It was like a
It was
3-issue
the
arc.
three.
Yeah. That was like, oh, this is good. And then you had all the behind the scenes issues where he left before the first issue came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, not quite the hope
Yeah,
that we'd
but
hoped.
we're getting down a rabbit hole here of new.
Well, no,
52
I'm just
Superman.
saying. So
No, but
this
we're actually
crossover-
we're actually doing a special on that in like a month. So shut up.
Okay,
Basically.
so I was just saying, this crossed over between all of the Superman story arcs for the last 2 months, right? So it went through Batman, Superman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Action. Am I forgetting something?
it was all the Superman books for the last 2 months. It was all 51s
So
and
and
52s.
this not only wraps up Superman for the New 52, but all of those threads and introduced a whole bunch of new ones,
But
right?
I enjoyed this. It was probably the best issue of this arc since the first one or first two,
Oh,
maybe.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the fight. I enjoyed Superman doing whatever he could to try and like stop this guy, but failing. And one of my favorite moments of the week actually was old Superman like appearing in that 2-page splash. Like just when you think the new 52 Superman isn't got enough in him to save the day, the old one shows up and makes sure, like
Got this.
yeah. And I really liked that moment. That was really really nice.
It was really good.
Yeah.
Do you think this arc in general, like as 8 issues, was too much for it?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
it was more of a 5 or 6, I think, and it was spread out.
I don't think it needed a crossover into Superman Wonder Woman because they had a relationship, but it felt like it was a back burner.
I thought Wonder Woman herself was a bit whiny. She's very selfish, and I just thought it didn't really jive with everything else that Tomasi was doing in this story.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, oh, we need something for that book to do for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
So let's tie it into that. Yeah, it felt spread out. It felt because their Superman Batman relationship worked really well in the arc.
Yep.
That was the 3 issues before of Superman Batman. I think it was Tom Taylor was very good as well,
Yeah.
and that had the same sort of friendship connection that the rest of the book had been missing.
So check that out.
I thought it was a better end for New 52 Superman that I ever thought we'd get, just based on his time as Superman. And I had some nice moments. So
When you think about it, how much it took to kill this version was the Apocalypse Fire Pits, Kryptonite poisoning, the Doomsday virus. Like, the dude was just a walking time bomb.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time on it.
Yeah, so, and I didn't expect to get so emotional at the end, but the way that Tomasi and Janin handled it with the panels and the dialogue, and then for it to
the
just
art was
happen, it's
fantastic.
emotionally charged. Yeah. Whew. Definitely don't want to revisit that panel again. It got misty.
Mm.
yeah. So everyone's good, and it ends with Lois writing an article, which is a really nice touch. How we're going to get to specifically, her becoming Superwoman, we'll find out, I guess, in Superwoman issue 1, since they're not set up yet.
Yeah, which is went in a completely different angle. I thought whatever the energy that was causing this guy to think he was Superman would somehow end up with her.
Chinese one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, I think that ties more
which is
into
cool.
to the Chinese one, just because they went to China to investigate it. So I don't think it'll be the exact same thing, but I think whatever that place that was experimenting or whatever will be the reason why. Was it Kenji Kan? Is that the
Kenji.
Yeah, they've changed the name a couple times now.
It was Kenji Kan at the WonderCon event. I think they've changed it once since then.
Yeah.
Right.
But this also set up the Supergirl stuff going forward.
Yep.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yes.
which
National
I'm looking
City
forward to a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
she does get a costume redesign, right? She's not wearing the bikini front. It's gonna look more akin to the
More like the TV show.
yeah,
TV show.
which
That's
is much
my
which
favorite.
is much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much better than. I mean, I don't hate the new 52 one, but it doesn't feel like classic Supergirl to me.
No.
No.
Feels off. All right, so that'll take us on nicely then to Lois and Clark issue 8. Now, this was a book that kind of came out of nowhere almost. It was a really weird concept of like old 52 Superman and Lois and their son John.
The one positive to come out of Convergence was that they had survived and they're here, kind of being disappointed in how.
It was a very meta book throughout, wasn't it? Because you see, like right from the first issue of this, he's judging this Superman.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that was the thing as well, is it made me realise just how much I hated the New 52 almost, because as soon as I heard him speak, it was like, this feels right. This feels like the voice that's been missing.
It wasn't that compelling a story at all, like throughout the whole thing. The story.
It's all over the place.
Yeah. But it was just, this is how they should be. This is how they should sound. Yeah,
so it gets those characters, both of them right, both Clark and Lois sound right. And then John's actually a really interesting little character. He's endearing, and the journey of him, which sort of culminates here with them trying to like jump off the porch and fly, now that he knows he's Superman's kid, is really nice. It almost feels like the correct and interesting version of what they try to do in Superman Returns, almost.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So,
which I wonder if Johns put this in motion, being so close with Richard Donner, because that was always the plan. I guess, was in the Superman story that Donner wanted to tell. They were going to introduce a kid. That's why in Last Son, the Action Comics run, that featured Zod coming back and Chris Kent, that's why there was a kid there. So I almost wonder if they've been trying to do this now for the last, 10 years, and they just got
away to do
it up. Yeah, and they did it. They handled it really well, because he's not an annoying kid. I think he's going to play off of Damian really well in Super Sons.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to...
Their opposing attitudes is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I hope there's a good writer on that, because that is the one worry that'll be...
Yep.
There's no way they give those two characters a shoot, right? They're not going to give that to Lobdell, are they? Come on.
Don't put that out there, Connor.
Yeah, keep your mouth shut.
But because we don't know the creative team for that yet, or do we just know the artist?
No, we don't. Well,
we don't even know the artist.
Yeah,
we saw the costume designs, and that's it.
Yes,
but we know the concepts, like just Damien and John teaming up, but that's about it. Yeah. I don't even want to say that about the end of the plot, because he's often he's fighting this crazy purple-haired woman in Henshaw's stories concluding. I mean, no one really cares.
No, the story itself. I just the end cap, the beginning and the end cap with John and Lois, and then the family together, and just that cover is fantastic.
Clark breaking out his old cape, and giving it to John's a really sweet moment.
And then him actually flying up. It's just,
yeah. And it's nice because it means he'll have the flight power, which he can use when he's with Damien in that book. And it really separates those two characters. It'll be interesting.
Hopefully.
I was going to say it's interesting to see, because we've had Superman and Batman play off each other a lot in the past, and it'll be interesting to see how that translate when they're 13, Yeah.
Because you also had Tim Drake and Connor, they have their thing, and now this just continues the great team up of the Bat and Superman families, and just Damien can be a real dickhead.
And he's gonna be, he's so competitive. And he's gonna try and outdo him so much.
Yeah, it's going to piss him off that John can just go in a room and take the bullet hits and whatever.
Yeah,
you're
doing it wrong. No, this is how I do things. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And then Damien has to try to deal with thinking that he does things wrong.
It should be just a fantastic book.
Yeah,
should be, and hopefully it is.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's week 1 of Rebirth. I mean, technically only one of the books was Rebirth, but the other ones all fed into it and all built into it, so it would be a disservice to not talk about them. Next week, we have Batman Rebirth issue 1, we have Superman Rebirth issue 1, we have Green Lantern's Rebirth issue 1, and we have Green Arrow Rebirth issue 1. So we've got 4 books to talk about next week, all these Rebirth issue 1s. and that'll typically how it's going over the next few weeks. Is we'll have 4 or 5 new books every week, and then when we get to next month, they start to beef up a bit because more books start to get added into the mix. So that we'll be covering all 4 of those next week. So if you want to read those and check them out, or if not, just come back and find out what happened in them, because we'll tell you and discuss them at length. So yeah, that's been week 1 of Rebirth. Although next week's the first real week of.
This is almost a week 0. So
yeah. But it's been episode 1 of Comics from the Multiverse. So to wrap up this week, we're going to do our outros and our plugs and say our Twitters and all that. But first of all, I just want to actually tell you about our friend Boy Ackerman, because he's a comic book artist who's worked on a book with a couple of guys called Captain Ultimate, and they're doing a Kickstarter right now for a sort of Volume 1 trade paperback.
Yeah, for a print run.
Yeah, for a print run, because so far it's only been digital, I think. And so check it. It's called Captain Ultimate. You can find it on Kickstarter. He's a friend of ours, so I just wanted to give him a shout out and give him a little bit of a
And
plug.
also, the book is actually very good, because I don't know about you. I've read it. You guys?
I've read some of it. I've not read all of it.
Yeah,
me too. But it's important because it's all ages in all form of it.
Yeah.
What you want, because it's those type of books that lead people to read stuff like Rebirth. So.
Yeah, and if we're talking about hope and optimism, you don't get more hopeful and optimistic than Captain Ultimate.
And plus, a super dope mustache.
I was just going to say he's got a killer mustache, so check out that if you're interested, give it some support. And even if you don't want to contribute to the Kickstarter, you can go to Comixology and buy the book digitally if you want to support it that way.
Or just spread the word. That's all you have to do.
But of course, enough plugging of other people's stuff. Let's plug our stuff. Matt, what's your Twitter and your social medias? Where can people find you if they want to get more?
At Matt of Steel 57 on Twitter.
Cool. And what else are you on as part of the Mail Fuzz podcast network?
Oh, myself, I'm also on 1.21 gigawatts. Now you're talking to Connor for a second.
You really had to think about that there.
I did. 1.21 gigawatts, the Mild Fuzz Movies podcast, and as long as Game of Thrones on, I pop up on Almost Cancelled to talk about season 6 Game of Thrones. So, yeah. Okay. Usually, you just ask me my Twitter handle, and then I check out.
This is the first episode. I'm giving everyone a chance to.
Because Peter's on everything, so he needs to spread out everything for other people.
Yeah. So Connor, where can people find you?
On Twitter, you can find me at ConnorRyan94. And as Matt just mentioned, Almost Cancelled, you can find me covering pretty much everything else but Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Which normally this would be very appropriate because we cover all the DC shows, but they've just ended because summer.
However, you can go to, on the same channel as this on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, Melfuzz TV, you can get a nice handy playlist for all of the last season of Flash, Supergirl, Arrow, Legend of Tomorrow, and you can watch all our reviews in a nice handy playlist if you want to.
Yeah,
definitely we got watch some cool... the Arrow ones.
Mild spoilers. Supergirl and Flash are fairly positive. Arrow and Legend of Tomorrow are fairly not positive.
Especially the back half of Arrow, where I start just getting shit-faced drunk for the reviews.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
but going forward in terms of the comic book shows we got Outcast and Preacher have just started up, so we're covering those.
Yeah, and those both had a promising start, so you can check out those. Check out what we thought of them, and definitely worth watching the shows. And of course, I'll round up by saying you can find me on Twitter and other social media places at Wibble89. You can also find me on the horror movie podcast, Screams After Midnight, which is on the Mail Fuzz Movies YouTube channel, along with 1.21 gigawatts, and of course on iTunes and all that jazz. And with all that said, guys, if you don't care about any of that, you just want to get DC Comics chat, you can just keep it here at Comics from the Multiverse. This has been episode 1. Help us out by liking and subscribing and 5-starring on iTunes and whatever else. Comment on, if you're on YouTube, comment in the comments. Let us know what you thought of Rebirth and the other books this week from DC. But with that said, guys, this has been the first ever episode of Comics from the Multiverse. We will see you next week.
And long live the Legion.